Have you ever wondered why people seem to come running back the moment you step away? One day you're pouring all your energy into someone, texting first, making plans, always showing up, only to feel like they couldn't care less. Then, as soon as you pull back, something remarkable happens. Suddenly they're knocking on your door, craving your attention, desperate to reconnect. What changed? Did they have some epiphany overnight? Was it magic? No, it's human nature, and more importantly, it's psychology. This isn't about playing games or manipulating someone's emotions. It's about understanding why this dynamic unfolds and how giving someone distance not only impacts them but transforms you. Relationships are complex, shaped by emotions, behaviors, and perceptions. And at the heart of this dance lies a truth that many fail to grasp. When you give someone distance, you allow them to see your value clearly. Today, we're diving into 7 powerful reasons why stepping back shifts the entire dynamic. These aren't just empty theories, they're rooted in Stoicism and human psychology. You'll discover how your absence can become a mirror, forcing them to reflect on their behavior. You'll understand why this isn't about them at all. It's about reclaiming your power, focusing on your growth, and becoming someone they can't afford to ignore. But here's the catch: it's not easy. Pulling away stirs up your fears of being forgotten, abandoned, or replaced. Yet, embracing this step could be the most liberating move you'll ever make. Imagine stepping into your power, free from the need for their validation, and watching them come back on their own. Not because you begged or chased, but because they realized with stunning clarity what they almost lost. Ready to unlock the truth? Stick with me through this journey, and by the end you won't just understand why they come back, you'll have the tools to transform your relationships and your life. Let's dive in. 1. The realization of what they've lost. It begins quietly, almost imperceptibly. At first, they may not even notice your absence. Perhaps they assume you're just busy or distracted. After all, they've grown accustomed to your presence, a comforting constant, always there to listen, support, and care. They didn't need to think about your value because they never imagined a world without you in it. But when you give them distance, something profound begins to happen. They start to feel the weight of your absence. Think about it. How often do we truly appreciate the things we have while we have them? As the Stoic philosopher Socrates once observed, "He who is not contented with what he has would not be contented with what he would like to have." People rarely notice the warmth of the sun until it hides behind the clouds. Your consistent effort, your attention, your energy, all of it became part of their daily routine, something they unconsciously relied upon. But now that you've stepped away, there's a void, and that void cannot be ignored. The beauty of giving someone distance lies in this: you create a space for them to reflect, to confront what they've taken for granted. It's not immediate. This realization unfolds gradually, like a sunrise casting light on things they hadn't seen before. They start to replay memories of you in their mind. They think about the small acts of kindness you offered, the emotional support you provided, the times you showed up when no one else did. It's only now, in your absence, that these moments take on their full meaning. Have you ever noticed how people seem to amplify their appreciation for something once it's no longer available? It's a phenomenon deeply rooted in human psychology. When you're always there, your value can become invisible, obscured by familiarity. But when you pull back, you force them to sit with the reality of what they've lost. It's not about punishing them, it's about allowing the natural consequence of their inattention to play out. Now, here's where Stoicism offers profound guidance. Stoicism teaches us to focus on what we can control, our own actions, choices, and emotions. You cannot force someone to see your worth while you're still chasing them, but you can control how much energy you invest in people who fail to reciprocate. By stepping away, you reclaim your power, redirecting your energy toward yourself rather than someone who didn't fully appreciate it. But let's be honest, pulling back is hard. It stirs up a storm of doubts and fears. What if they don't notice? What if they never come back? What if I'm making a mistake? These questions are natural, but they stem from a mindset of scarcity, a belief that if this one person doesn't value you, no one else will. Nothing could be further from the truth. Giving someone space isn't about securing their return. It's about setting yourself free. If they fail to recognize your worth, that's their loss, not yours. Imagine this. You've been there for someone, offering them stability and care. Over time, they stopped appreciating your efforts, assuming they'd always be there. Then, one day, you decide to pull back, not to manipulate them, but to focus on your own growth. At first, they may not notice, but as days turn into weeks, something shifts. They start to feel your absence in ways they didn't expect. They miss the way you used to check in, the sound of your laughter, the comfort of knowing you were just a call away. This realization can be a powerful catalyst for change, not just in how they see you, but in how they treat you moving forward. When someone comes back after realizing what they've lost, it's not because you forced them. It's because they've had the space to reflect and understand your value on their own terms. And that's the kind of connection that matters, one built on mutual respect, not desperation. So let me ask you, what are you holding on to that's keeping you from stepping into your power? Are you afraid they won't come back? Or are you afraid of discovering that you never needed them as much as you thought you did? These are the questions that challenge us to grow, to become the kind of person who no longer waits for validation but creates their own sense of worth. Here's the truth. When someone truly values you, they'll come back, not because you chased them, but because they've come to see your worth in ways they couldn't before. And if they don't, that's your answer. You were never meant to settle for someone who couldn't appreciate you in the first place. This is just the beginning. The realization of what they've lost is the first step in a transformative journey, one that will not only change the way they see you, but the way you see yourself. Stay with me, because the next reason will reveal why their curiosity about your newfound independence can become one of the most magnetic forces drawing them back. Let's continue. 2. The shock of your absence. Have you ever experienced the power of your absence? It's a phenomenon that feels almost counterintuitive. People get comfortable with your presence, so much so that they take it for granted. You're always there, a steady, reliable force, making their life easier without them even realizing it. But when you pull back, when you decide to stop being their constant safety net, it's like pulling the rug out from under them. It sends shockwaves through their world, forcing them to reckon with the reality of what you brought to their life. Think about it. How often do people truly notice the things that are always there? The sunlight streaming through the window, the air they breathe, the ground beneath their feet. It's human nature to overlook the familiar until it's no longer there. The same thing happens in relationships. When you're always available, always showing up, they stop feeling the need to appreciate you. But the moment you step back, the moment you disappear from their routine, something extraordinary happens. They feel the shock of your absence. Why is this shock so powerful? Because it forces them to confront the void you've left behind. It's not just about missing your texts or your presence. It's about the stability and comfort you provided without asking for anything in return. They might not have consciously thought about it before, but now that it's gone, they can't ignore it. Your absence is like a mirror reflecting everything they've taken for granted, and it hits them harder than they ever expected. Here's where Stoicism comes into play. Stoicism teaches us to detach from the things we cannot control and focus on our own actions and growth. When you pull back, you're not punishing them or playing games. You're stepping into your own power. You're showing them, and more importantly yourself, that your presence is not something to be taken lightly. You're creating space not for manipulation but for reflection, both theirs and yours. Let me ask you something. Do you feel like people have stopped appreciating the effort you bring into their lives? Have you felt invisible? As though no matter how much you give, it's never enough to make them see your worth. The truth is, the more you give without boundaries, the more people begin to assume your energy is infinite. But when you step away, you shatter that illusion. Suddenly they're left with questions they can't ignore. Why aren't you reaching out? What changed? Are you happier without them? This is the beauty of the shock you create. It forces them to step outside their comfort zone and see you for who you truly are, not as someone they can always depend on, but as someone they need to earn back. And here's the powerful part. When they feel this shock, they're not just reacting to your absence, they're responding to the strength you've shown in pulling away. But let's be honest, pulling back isn't easy. It requires courage. You might feel tempted to check in to make sure they're okay, to fill the silence with your presence again. That's normal. It's hard to resist the pull of old habits. But here's the thing. By holding your ground, you're sending a message not just to them, but to yourself, that your time, energy, and presence are valuable. You're reclaiming your worth in a way that words never could. Imagine this, you've been the one who always initiates, always plans, always gives. Then one day you stop. You decide to focus on yourself instead. At first, they might not even notice they're too caught up in their own lives. But as time goes on, they start to feel it. The texts that no longer come, the calls that no longer interrupt their day, the plans that are no longer made. It's like a slow burn, a creeping realization that something is missing, and that something is you. This shock is not about making them regret their actions, it's about showing them that your presence was never guaranteed. And as they sit with this new reality, they begin to understand just how much they've underestimated you. It's not about vengeance or power plays, it's about letting them face the consequences of their own complacency. And when they come back, and trust me, they will, it won't be because you forced them. It'll be because they've seen the light of their own accord. Now, let's take a moment. If this resonates with you, if you've ever experienced the frustration of being taken for granted, or the satisfaction of reclaiming your power, like this video and comment number 1 below. Your engagement not only shows that you're ready to embrace your worth, but also helps spread this message to others who need to hear it. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you never miss out on insights like this. Together, we're building a community of growth, self-respect, and transformation. Don't just watch, be part of the journey. But remember, this is only the second step. There's more to uncover, and the next reason we'll dive into how their curiosity about your absence can become one of the strongest forces pulling them back into your orbit. Stay with me, because the best is yet to come. 3. The fear of replacement. Fear is a powerful motivator, especially when it's tied to losing something or someone you thought was always yours. When you pull back, when you stop being the constant presence they've grown used to, a seed of doubt begins to grow in their mind. At first, it's subtle, almost imperceptible. They might brush it off, telling themselves that you're just busy or distracted. But as time stretches on, that doubt transforms into something much stronger, the fear of being replaced. Think about it. People often assume that the relationships they take for granted are immune to change. They assume your attention, your affection, your time will always be available, no matter how much or how little they give in return. But when you remove yourself from the equation, you shatter that illusion. Suddenly, they're confronted with the unsettling possibility that someone else might be stepping into the space they once occupied. This fear doesn't emerge all at once, it creeps in slowly, day by day. At first, they might simply wonder what you're up to. But as their imagination takes over, it starts painting vivid scenarios. Are they seeing someone new? Is someone else making them laugh the way I used to? Have I been replaced? The human mind has an incredible ability to amplify these thoughts, turning a whisper of doubt into a roaring wave of insecurity. The irony here is striking. When you were fully present, giving your time and energy freely, they likely didn't think twice about your value. But now that you're gone, now that they're forced to imagine you thriving without them, their perspective shifts entirely. The fear of replacement is not just about losing you. It's about the idea of someone else appreciating you in ways they failed to. It's about the realization that they may have overlooked something extraordinary, and now someone else might be benefiting from what they took for granted. Stoicism offers a profound lens through which to understand this dynamic. As Epictetus wisely said, it is possible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows. In this context, they thought they knew you. They thought they had you figured out, that your attention and affection were constants they didn't need to question. But your absence forces them to confront the reality that they may not have understood you or valued you as deeply as they should have. This fear, however, isn't just about you. It's also about them. It's a blow to their ego, a challenge to the comfortable narrative they've built about themselves and your relationship. They start to question their role in your life. Were they enough? Did they push you away? Are they losing you for good? These questions ignite a sense of urgency that wasn't there before. The thought of being replaced stirs something primal within them, the instinct to protect what they believe is theirs. But here's the critical part. The power of this fear lies in its authenticity. You're not pulling back to manipulate them into feeling insecure. You're pulling back because you've chosen to prioritize yourself, to reclaim your energy and focus it on your own growth. The fear they feel is a natural consequence of their own actions or inactions. It's not something you created, it's something they've come to realize on their own. Imagine this: you've been the one who always reaches out, the one who keeps the relationship alive. Over time, they've grown complacent, assuming you'll always be there. But then you stop. You pull back, not with malice, but with intention. At first, they might not even notice. But as days turn into weeks, they begin to feel the difference. They see the absence of your effort, the silence where your presence used to be. And as they sit with this void, the fear begins to grow. They check their phone, wondering why your name hasn't appeared. They scroll through your social media, looking for clues. And every unanswered question feeds their insecurity. What if you've moved on? What if someone else is now the focus of your attention? The fear of replacement becomes an undeniable force pulling them back toward you. But here's the truth. This fear isn't about punishing them or proving a point. It's about creating space for them to reflect, to confront their own behavior, and to decide if they're willing to show up for you in the way you deserve. If they come back, it's because they've realized the value of what they almost lost, not because you forced them, but because your absence spoke louder than any words ever could. And if they don't, that's your answer. If someone doesn't care enough to fight for their place in your life, they were never worthy of your time in the first place. The fear of replacement is a powerful motivator, but it's also a litmus test. It reveals who truly values you and who only valued the convenience of having you around. So ask yourself, are you afraid of pulling back because you don't want to lose them? Or are you afraid of discovering that they might not care as much as you hoped? These are hard questions, but they're necessary ones. Because the truth is, the right people won't let you slip away. They'll face their fears, confront their insecurities, and come back with a renewed appreciation for the unique light you bring into their life. The fear of replacement is not just about them. It's about you stepping into your power and showing the world that you're not afraid to prioritize your own worth. Stay with me because we're just getting started. The next reason will reveal how your confidence, born from this journey of self-growth, becomes a magnetic force they simply can't resist. Let's continue. 4. Your confidence becomes magnetic. Confidence. It's a word we hear often, but how often do we truly understand its power? Confidence isn't about loudness or arrogance, it's about quiet self-assurance, a belief in your worth that doesn't waver, no matter who is or isn't in your life. When you give someone distance, something extraordinary begins to happen. You stop looking outward for validation and start focusing inward. This shift, while subtle at first, grows into a force so magnetic that it draws people toward you, including the ones who may have once taken you for granted. Let's think about what happens when you pull back. You redirect the energy you once spent on someone else, on texting first, making plans, worrying about their responses, and channel it into your own growth. Instead of chasing their attention, you start chasing your goals. Instead of wondering why they aren't showing up for you, you begin showing up for yourself. And as you do, you start to glow in a way that's impossible to ignore. This is where the magic of confidence lies. It's not about trying to prove anything to anyone else. It's about fully embracing who you are, flaws and all, and knowing that your worth is not tied to anyone's approval. This quiet strength, this self-assuredness creates an energy that people can't help but be drawn to. The person who once underestimated you begins to notice that something is different. You're no longer chasing after them. You're no longer hanging on their every word or waiting for their attention. And that shift in dynamic is both surprising and irresistible. Stoicism teaches us that true power comes from within. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Confidence is the embodiment of this principle. When you stop seeking external validation, you free yourself from the chains of other people's opinions. You reclaim control over your life, your emotions, and your decisions. And that freedom is intoxicating, not just for you, but for those around you. But let's be real. Building this kind of confidence isn't easy, especially if you've spent a long time prioritizing someone else's needs over your own. It requires effort, discipline, and, most importantly, self-compassion. You have to be willing to look at yourself honestly, to acknowledge your strengths and work on your weaknesses without judgment. You have to invest in your growth, whether that means pursuing new hobbies, setting boundaries, or simply taking time to rest and recharge. Imagine this. You've been giving and giving, pouring yourself into a relationship that feels one-sided. Then one day you decide to stop, not out of anger or spite, but out of a desire to honor yourself. You start focusing on the things that make you happy, the passions you've neglected, the friends who uplift you. You stop checking your phone every 5 minutes for a message that may or may not come. And as you do, something incredible happens. You begin to feel lighter, freer, more in control of your own happiness. Meanwhile, the person who once took you for granted starts to notice the change. They see you thriving, glowing with confidence, and it makes them question everything they thought they knew about you. How did you become so strong, so independent, so magnetic? They can't help but be drawn back to you, not because you've chased them, but because your confidence has shown them what they're missing. Here's the irony. When you needed their validation, they pulled away. But now that you've stopped needing it, they're the ones chasing after you. Confidence changes everything. It shifts the power dynamic, turning you from someone who once sought attention into someone who commands it effortlessly. And the best part, this confidence isn't a performance. It's real, rooted in the work you've done on yourself and the growth you've achieved. Let me ask you this. What would your life look like if you stopped seeking validation from others? What could you achieve if you poured all that energy into yourself instead? Confidence is not about being perfect. It's about being unapologetically you. And when you embrace that, you become unstoppable. If this resonates with you, if you felt the power of confidence or aspire to build it, like this video and comment number 1 below. Let's celebrate the strength we're building together. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. This is just one part of the journey, and there's so much more to uncover. By subscribing, you're committing to your growth, your power, and your transformation. Let's continue this journey together, step by step. But for now, let's keep going. The next reason will reveal how the simple act of creating scarcity can transform how others perceive and value you. Stay with me, you won't want to miss it. 5. The Scarcity Principle. Have you ever noticed how the things that are hardest to obtain often seem the most valuable? A limited edition pair of sneakers, a rare collector's item, or even a fleeting sunset. Scarcity has a way of capturing our attention and amplifying desire. This isn't just about material things. It's a principle deeply ingrained in human psychology, one that applies just as powerfully to relationships. When you create distance, when you make yourself less available, you tap into the scarcity principle in a way that forces others to reevaluate how much they value your time, energy, and presence. Think about the dynamic of being constantly available. When you're always around, always reaching out, always offering your attention freely, it's easy for others to become complacent. Your presence becomes predictable, a constant background noise that blends into the rhythm of their life. They don't have to work for your attention because they assume it's always there, always accessible. And as harsh as it may sound, people are less likely to value what they feel they can't lose. Now consider the opposite. What happens when you step back? Suddenly, the attention they once took for granted isn't so easy to come by. Your time becomes less predictable, your presence less guaranteed. This shift in availability introduces scarcity into the equation, and scarcity changes everything. Human nature is wired to value what feels exclusive. The less they can have of you, the more they'll want you. When you create distance, you're not just pulling away physically, you're altering the way they perceive you. You go from being someone who was always there to someone whose time and energy must be earned. And this isn't about playing games or manufacturing artificial scarcity. It's about recognizing that your attention is valuable and choosing to give it only where it's reciprocated. Stoicism offers profound wisdom on this subject. It teaches us to detach from the things we cannot control and to value our own time and energy as precious resources. When you choose to pull back, you're not withholding yourself to manipulate others. You're doing so because you've chosen to prioritize your own growth, your own well-being. You're setting boundaries that reflect the respect you have for yourself, and in doing so, you invite others to respect you as well. This shift in dynamics is often startling for the person on the other side. Imagine someone who has grown used to your constant presence, your consistent effort. One day they wake up and realize you're no longer there in the same way. At first, they may not know what to make of it. But as the days go by, they begin to feel the difference. They notice the absence of your texts, the silence in conversations you used to initiate, the plans that no longer revolve around them. And it's in this absence that scarcity begins to take hold. They start to wonder, why aren't you reaching out? Have they done something wrong? Are you giving your attention to someone else? These questions swirl in their mind, creating a sense of urgency that wasn't there before. What once felt guaranteed now feels uncertain, and that uncertainty makes them realize just how much they missed the parts of you they took for granted. But here's the critical part. Scarcity isn't just about making them miss you. It's about creating space for them to reflect on their own behavior and decide whether they're willing to step up. When you pull back, you give them the opportunity to evaluate how much they value your presence. If they're truly invested, they'll make an effort to close the gap. And if they don't, that's your answer. Someone who isn't willing to work for your attention was never truly invested in the first place. Let's use an example. Imagine you've been in a relationship where you're always the one initiating contact. You're the one who sends the good morning texts, who plans the dates, who checks in throughout the day. Over time, the other person begins to expect this from you. They don't have to put in the same effort because they know you'll always pick up the slack. Now, let's say you decide to stop. You stop initiating, stop planning, stop checking in. At first, they might not even notice. They're so used to you doing the work that it doesn't register right away. But as the days go by, something shifts. They start to feel the absence of your effort. They begin to miss the little things you used to do. And in that void, they're forced to confront the reality of their own complacency. This is where the scarcity principle works its magic. By making your attention less accessible, you create a dynamic where they have to choose. Either step up and meet you halfway or risk losing you altogether. And here's the beautiful part. When someone chooses to make an effort, it's not because you've demanded it. It's because they've come to value what they almost lost. This kind of shift is far more meaningful than anything you could force or manipulate. It's real and it's lasting. But let's be honest, creating scarcity isn't easy. It requires discipline, self-control, and a willingness to let go of the need for immediate validation. You might feel tempted to reach out, to fill the silence with your presence again. You might wonder if they're noticing your absence, if they're even thinking about you. These doubts are natural, but they're also a test of your commitment to yourself. Scarcity works only when it's authentic, when it comes from a place of genuine self-respect rather than a desire to control someone else's actions. So how do you embrace this principle without falling into the trap of manipulation? The answer lies in living your life fully and authentically. Focus on your passions, your goals, your well-being. Spend time with people who uplift you and pursue activities that bring you joy. When your life is rich and fulfilling, your presence naturally becomes more valuable, not because you're withholding it, but because you're giving it intentionally. And here's the truth. The right people will notice. They'll recognize the value of your time and energy, and they'll step up to meet you where you are. The wrong people, those who only valued your availability and not your essence, will fall away. And that's okay. Scarcity is as much about revealing who belongs in your life as it is about drawing people back into it. The scarcity principle is a reflection of one of life's most important lessons. You are the one who determines your worth. By making your time and energy scarce, you remind others and yourself that these are precious resources. And in doing so, you create relationships that are built on mutual respect, effort, and genuine connection. Stay with me, because the next reason will take us even deeper into how this transformation unfolds. 6. Curiosity takes over. Curiosity is one of the most powerful forces in human psychology. It's the driving force behind exploration, innovation, and even attraction. When you pull back from someone, when you stop being the ever-available, predictable presence in their life, you spark a fire of curiosity that can become irresistible. People are naturally drawn to mystery, and when you create a gap in their understanding of you, their mind races to fill that gap. This curiosity, this need to know more, is often what draws them back to you. Let's break it down. When you were always present, always reaching out, there was nothing for them to wonder about. They felt like they knew everything about you, your schedule, your thoughts, even your patterns of behavior. While that predictability might seem comforting, it can also dull their sense of intrigue. There's no tension, no question, no pull to uncover something new. But the moment you pull away, you introduce a fundamental shift. Suddenly, you're no longer as accessible, no longer as predictable, and that change sets their curiosity into motion. At first, they might dismiss your absence. Maybe they think you're just busy or distracted. But as time passes and they still don't hear from you, their mind starts racing. Why aren't you reaching out? What's going on in your life? Who are you spending time with? Have you moved on? These questions fill the void that your absence has left behind, and the more they wonder about you, the more they're drawn to find answers. Curiosity thrives on the unknown. It's the tension between what they thought they knew and what they no longer understand about you. And here's the interesting part. The less you give away, the more their curiosity grows. If you're living your life fully, investing in yourself, spending time with people who uplift you, and pursuing your passions, you naturally become less predictable. You're no longer waiting by the phone, no longer updating them on every detail of your day. Instead, you're creating a sense of mystery, not by withholding information intentionally, but by focusing on yourself and your growth. This is where Stoicism offers profound insight. Stoic philosophy teaches us that we cannot control what others think or feel about us. What we can control is how we show up for ourselves. By choosing to focus on your own life, you create a sense of intrigue that naturally draws people in. You're not pulling away to manipulate them or play games. You're pulling away because you're prioritizing yourself. And in doing so, you become the kind of person others are curious about, someone whose life is full, dynamic, and interesting. Imagine this: you've always been the one to text first, to share updates about your life, to make plans. Then one day you decide to stop. You focus on your own goals, your own happiness, and your own growth. At first, they might not even notice the change, but as time goes on, they start to wonder, why haven't you texted? What's been keeping you so busy? Who are you spending time with? And as their curiosity grows, so does their desire to reconnect. They're no longer taking your presence for granted. They're actively seeking it out. This shift in dynamic is powerful. It flips the script, turning you from someone who was chasing into someone who is being pursued. And the best part, it's not a strategy or a tactic. It's a natural consequence of you living your life authentically and fully. Your focus on yourself creates a ripple effect, drawing people back to you not because you're playing hard to get, but because you become someone worth wondering about. But let's be honest, pulling back and allowing curiosity to do its work isn't always easy. It requires patience and trust in the process. You might feel tempted to fill the silence, to reach out and remind them of your presence. But here's the truth. The more you resist that urge, the more powerful their curiosity becomes. Let them sit with the questions. Let them wonder. Because when they come back, and trust me, they will, it won't be because you chased them. It'll be because they couldn't stop thinking about you. Now let me ask you this. How often do you let others take you for granted because you're afraid of stepping away? How much of your energy do you give to people who don't even wonder about your life or your feelings? By creating space, by allowing their curiosity to build, you reclaim your power. You show them and yourself that your life is rich and fulfilling, with or without their attention. If this resonates with you, if you've ever felt the pull of curiosity working in your favor, like this video and comment number 1 below. Let's celebrate the power of being someone worth wondering about. And if you're ready to keep growing, to keep exploring these dynamics and transforming your relationships, subscribe to the channel now. By subscribing, you're joining a community of people committed to their own growth, their own worth, and their own transformation. Together, we're building lives that are full, dynamic, and impossible to ignore. The next reason we'll explore takes this concept even further, showing how breaking someone's comfort zone can completely shift the dynamic of your relationship. Stay with me, this is where the real transformation begins. 7. Breaking their comfort zone. Comfort can be a wonderful thing, but in relationships, it often breeds complacency. When someone grows too comfortable with your presence, they stop questioning their behavior. They stop putting in effort. They assume you'll always be there, no matter how little they contribute, no matter how much they take you for granted. This comfort zone is a trap, not just for them, but for you as well. And when you decide to step back, to disrupt this pattern, everything begins to change. Imagine someone who has settled into a routine with you. They know you'll text first. They know you'll make the plans. They know you'll always pick up the pieces. Over time, this predictability lulls them into a false sense of security. They stop valuing the effort you bring to the table because they've stopped noticing it altogether. You've become part of their comfort zone, steady, reliable, unchanging. But what happens when you pull back? When you stop being the one to initiate, to accommodate, to smooth over every rough edge? The moment you step out of the pattern they've grown used to, you shatter their sense of stability. Suddenly, their comfort zone is gone, and they're left to confront a reality they didn't anticipate. This is where the power of breaking their comfort zone lies. When you remove yourself from their predictable routine, you force them to sit with the discomfort of your absence. It's not about punishing them or playing games. It's about creating a space for reflection and growth. They begin to notice the things they once overlooked. The small gestures of kindness, the stability you provided, the emotional support you offered without question. In the discomfort of losing these things, they start to realize just how much they relied on you. Breaking someone's comfort zone isn't about creating chaos, it's about creating clarity. Stoicism teaches us that growth happens outside of our comfort zones. When people are too comfortable, they stop evolving. They settle into patterns that require no thought, no effort. But when that comfort is disrupted, they're forced to adapt, to question, to change. By stepping back, you're giving them the opportunity to grow, not just in how they see you, but in how they approach relationships as a whole. Let's take a real-world example. Imagine you're in a relationship where you're always the one holding things together. You plan the dates, you send the text, you make the compromises. Your partner, on the other hand, has grown used to coasting. They know you'll handle the emotional labor, so they don't feel the need to step up. Then, one day you decide to stop. You stop texting first. You stop making the plans. You start focusing on your own life, your own goals, your own happiness. At first, they might not even notice. They've been so comfortable with you doing all the work that it doesn't register right away. But as time goes on, they start to feel the absence of your effort. The plans that used to appear out of nowhere, they're gone. The emotional support they once took for granted, no longer there. And in the silence, they begin to realize just how much they depended on you. This realization is uncomfortable. It forces them to confront their own complacency. They have to ask themselves hard questions. Why did I stop putting in effort? What does it say about me that I let them carry so much of the weight? This discomfort is not a bad thing. It's a catalyst for growth, both for them and for you. Here's the truth. People only value what they think they could lose. When someone knows you'll always be there, they stop feeling the urgency to show up for you. But when you pull back, when you step out of their comfort zone, you create a new dynamic, one where they have to choose whether they're willing to step up and meet you halfway. Breaking their comfort zone also shifts the way they see you. You go from being someone they assumed would always accommodate them to someone they now have to earn back into their life. This shift in perception is powerful. It changes the dynamic of the relationship, creating a sense of balance and mutual respect that wasn't there before. But let's be honest, breaking someone's comfort zone isn't easy. It requires you to let go of the need to fix things to make things right. It requires patience and trust in the process. You might feel tempted to step back in, to smooth things over, to return to the old patterns. But here's the thing. Growth doesn't happen in comfort. For them to truly see your worth, they have to sit with the discomfort of losing you. And here's the key. Breaking their comfort zone isn't about creating permanent distance. It's about resetting the dynamic. When they come back, and if they truly value you, they will. They'll come back with a new understanding of your worth. They'll see that your presence isn't something to be taken lightly. They'll understand that relationships require effort, reciprocity, and respect. This isn't about punishing them for their complacency. It's about teaching them, through your actions, that you won't settle for less than you deserve. And it's about teaching yourself that you're strong enough to walk away from a dynamic that no longer serves you. So ask yourself, are you ready to disrupt the patterns that no longer serve you? Are you ready to step out of their comfort zone and into your own power? Breaking their comfort zone is not about them. It's about you reclaiming your worth and creating space for relationships that are balanced, fulfilling, and built on mutual respect. This is where real transformation begins. Pulling back isn't about playing games or manipulating someone into chasing you. It's about reclaiming your energy, setting boundaries, and showing both yourself and others that your time, attention, and love are valuable. Each of the 7 reasons we've explored today, whether it's the shock of your absence, the curiosity your distance creates, or the realization of what they've lost, reflects one essential truth. Growth and self-respect are at the heart of the relationships. By giving someone distance, you're not just teaching them to value your presence, you're teaching yourself to prioritize your own needs and well-being. You're stepping out of old patterns of overgiving and stepping into a new space of strength and balance. This isn't about making them miss you. It's about showing them, through your actions, that your worth isn't tied to their attention. And here's the beauty of this journey. It's not about the other person, whether they come back or not, whether they recognize your value or let you go, you're still winning. Why? Because you've chosen to invest in yourself. You've chosen to focus on your growth, your happiness, and your own power. And that's a transformation no one can take away from you. So now it's your turn. What will you do with this newfound perspective? Will you continue pouring your energy into people who take it for granted? Or will you step back, take a breath, and redirect that energy toward yourself? The choice is yours, and it's a choice that has the power to change everything. If this video has resonated with you, if it sparked something inside you, let me know. Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear about your journey, what you're learning, how you're growing, and what steps you're taking to reclaim your power. And if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more insights like these. Together, we're building a community rooted in growth, self-respect, and transformation. This is a space for you to find strength, clarity, and inspiration as you navigate your relationships in your life. Thank you for spending this time with me. Remember, you are enough as you are, and the right people will recognize your worth without you having to chase them. Keep prioritizing yourself, keep growing, and keep shining. I'm rooting for you, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.